You feel pressure every day. You want to make sure everything's perfect.
I figure I have probably the best gig in live music.
I know I've done a good job when Getty never says anything to me.
We get to travel around the world and make people happy. What better job can you have than that?
You get the rush from the time the band takes the stage.
The legendary Canadian rock band Rush has enjoyed an impressive record-breaking career that has spanned 3 decades and produced over 30 albums. All the while winning the respect of music critics and the hearts of devoted fans around the world. Since releasing their first album back in 1974, Rush has sold over 40 million records. They've toured the world many times over, selling out hundreds of live stadium-rocking shows. When guitarist Alex Lifeson, drummer Neil Peart, and lead vocalist, bassist Geddy Lee go on tour, they bring with them some heavy artillery. 7 tractor trailers hauling an entire stage production. Lights, video, pyro, sound, along with 40 men and women whose job it is to set it all up.
Everything with red tape on the back goes stage right, down stage right.
Run it.
House lights go. 2, 1,
and tear it down. All in the course of a grueling 18-hour day. A rock show can be very stressful. The grueling pace is tough both on the band and their crew. The travel can also take its toll on their gear. The 4 key technicians who keep Rush in tune during this 4-month North American Snakes and Arrows tour are drum technician Lorne Wheaton, bass technician Russ Ryan, guitar tech Bobby Huck, and keyboard specialist Tony Geranios.
Here we are in Montreal today, the lovely Bell Center. We're only 2 hours and 25 minutes into it. We've got the grid up already. Trusses are in the process of being there, probably within 30 minutes.
Keeping a close watch on all the onstage activity is Neil Peart's drum technician, Lorne "Gump" Wheaton.
One of the first groups that I worked with, not being paid or anything like that, was in high school, and it just happened to be the original Rush with John Rutsey as the drummer. And they were playing, you know, the school dances, and Geddy and Alex they basically lived in the same area of Toronto as I did. And so they played the school dances, and that was with John as the drummer. And the first time I saw them, there was a coffee house at the high school I went to, and I helped load them in. Altogether, I've been doing this job for probably 36 years. But for Neil, I have been doing it since the year 2000.
I remember Lorne working with Max Webster when we toured together with them. That would be around 1980, and we did a long tour together, and toured Europe together with them when Lorne was working for Max Webster. And I can just remember on days off, just hanging out with him and getting to know him then. And then he came back to work with us as a carpenter on Test for Echo tour. And I knew that then he worked with Steve Smith at that time, who was one of the drummers I respect the most. And Jerry Mercer also with April Wine. So we were friends all that time before we'd worked together, and then we started working together on Vapor Trails during the recording, and then on the subsequent tour, and became, you know, that much closer friends apart from the working relationship, which is so important in such an intimate relationship like that.
we get along very well. The first tour I did with him, we were still sort of searching each other out, and even though we did know each other, but it's a whole different thing when you're one-on-one with the person.
The Rush backline is one of the last elements of this stage show to be assembled, and it is the first to be packed away for transport at the end of each performance. As a result, the instrument technicians travel together on the same tour bus, and usually are the last members of the road crew to arrive at the venue.
We arrive usually around 10:30, and sometimes I don't get to work till 1:30. My whole world is center stage, and until the lighting rig goes up in the air, I really can't do anything. The techs, the guitar techs and the keyboard techs, they have their stations off the stage. So I have another drum set that I set up in the Bubba Gump room, which is Neil's dressing room, which he has a practice drum set in. But that takes all of about 10 minutes to do. It's about maybe a quarter of the size of the stage kit. Hey guys, welcome to Bubba Gump. Come on in. This here is where Neil practices before the show. The giant drum set you see is about a quarter of the size of the tour kit, but he still has fun on it, of course. This is where he spends exactly 20 minutes before the show, before going in and hooking up with the other two guys and prepping for the show in the dressing room. This is what I do before I get to stage. I'll come in and there's a case that houses all this all this little drum set. So I come in usually around 10:30, 11 o'clock, and our production staff will find me a room, which we call the Bubba Gump room. Bubba being Neil, Gump being myself, because I was named. Getty was the one that came up with the name because of Lauren Gump Worsley in the old days. But I will come in here, set the drum kit up, tune it, play a little bit just because, it's fun to do it. And that'll be my first job of the day. And then I wait for the lighting guys to get their equipment up in the air so I can put the drum set on the stage.
My first tour was in 1988 with a band called Pretty Boy Floyd on MCA Records. I gave a friend of a friend a ride to a studio, and he actually was working for the band, and I didn't want to go drive 50 miles back to my house, so I said, hey, I'll help you guys load your stuff in if you get me in the show for free. And after the show, the bass player handed me $30 and said, want to go on tour. And that was the start of my touring experience. The first day, I was the lighting director, and after the first show, they said, how about you become the drum tech? So after a couple tours, I started working for bands where I did everything, because they were small bands, they weren't signed, and they need somebody to be the bus driver, the tour manager, the guitar tech, and the whole 9 yards. And from then on, it spawned on to working with other bands like Oingo Boingo and Bonnie Raitt, onto the Dixie Chicks and Bette Midler, and then onto this, and a bunch of other bands in between.
I hired Bucky because he came very highly recommended, and I've always had really, really good techs. I just felt a need for a change on this tour, and as I said, he came highly recommended, and we hit it off immediately, and we've become very, very good friends. And he's done a fantastic job. It's not easy working for me. I'm very particular about what I like, and I am quite emotional, so if there's a problem, I tend to voice it, loudly and proudly. But Bucky's taken it all in stride, and he, I think, understands that I'm looking for a certain thing, and it's hard to compromise that. But he's been absolutely great. I love the guy.
You feel pressure every day. You want to make sure everything's perfect for the guy. You don't want him to go up there and if he has a bad night, you don't want it to be your fault. You know what I mean? You want to make sure that you give him every opportunity to perform at the best of his abilities that you possibly can.
Been with Rush 10 years as Getty's tech and that, so it's been great. And I just hope the guys go for another 10 years and they keep hiring me. That'd be perfect. I'm just putting the guitar right now for Getty in the tuning room. We try to, every venue, we try to set up a little tuning room for Alex and Getty of some kind, away from the dressing room, so they got a little bit of privacy. They can warm up before show a little bit. So. This is Getty's tuning room bass. This is like a custom bass that was sort of made to look old after a Fender Jazz bass. It's not by Fender. It's just some guy that makes these great basses, and that's what we use for his tuning room bass. I was a bit of a musician in my teens and early 20s, and I just didn't want to play guitar. I just realized it wasn't for me, and I took a lot of lessons from great players and stuff, and it just wasn't for me, and I just didn't sort of fell into being a guitar tech. I didn't do it by choice. It just kind of happened, and you know, 25 years later, it's still doing the same thing.
You're playing Hangover.
I consider Getty a friend, and you know, and he's the kind of guy you can go talk to from personal stuff and obviously and business stuff. And we need to talk about, you know, maybe at the beginning of a tour when we're rehearsing, as like what bass he's going to use for what songs.
I'd say we're friends. You know, it's a kind of a working friendship in some circumstances. Like there's a lot of guys on the crew that I only see at the venue ever. I mean, I've got my stage left guys that we kibitz with every day, and we got our own running jokes between them. And Alex has his stage right situation, and so we all have our own little team that we kind of know more about and get more personal with. But I would say we're friends, but in some respects, I guess it's a professional friendship.
See what I mean? Yeah, that's better right there. Now, makeup, powder. We're gonna be a little tapped here. We'll get done though. Depends on how quick the lighting goes up.
While the rest of the backline technicians continue to set up their work zones, Lauren Wheaton anxiously stands by, waiting for the lighting grid to clear the stage so he can begin assembling the extensive drum kit. The lighting truss assembly is now officially running behind. That means that drum technician Lauren Wheaton can't get started on setting up Neil Peart's massive drum kit. Meanwhile, the remaining 3 instrument technicians are able to continue their work, including Geddy Lee's keyboard technician, Tony Geranios.
Watch out, I'm feeling a little tipsy today. Coffee, I could spill.
I started with the band in '77 when they first started headlining their shows. They had to kind of make a position for me because keyboard at that point weren't very extensive, so I was working with Liam Burt doing guitar maintenance, tuning for Alex, and in between that, maintaining the keyboards they had. This is Geddy's keyboard system I'm setting up right now. There are two areas that he uses his keyboards at, or the controllers. One at the keyboard, and then this position here, which has a set of pedals. So during the show, he'll play the pedals, MIDI controller here, and sing. Then during songs that require other keyboard parts, the MIDI controller, he'll be here with also a microphone set up. There are basically 3 controllers he's using. The 2 sets of pedals, and I have a Roland keyboard, which is 5 octave. And this is the main controller. The other keyboard he has is this Moog product. It's a digital mini Moog. Analog front end, so you can sculpt your sounds any way you want. Very, very similar to the original mini Moog. Sounds amazing.
It's 1 p.m. at the Bell Center in Montreal, Quebec, and the lighting grid is now in place high above the stage, leaving the back line clear for guitar tech Bobby Huck to assemble guitarist Alex Lifeson's gear. On this tour, Lifeson has opted to use 4 Hughes & Kettner amplifier steps. 2 are wired in stereo, while the others are set up to create a variety of different sounds.
These 2 amps are a stereo set, that's his main sound, and then the other 2 amps he can click in at any time, and they also have separate effects, so he can make it sound like he's playing 3 guitars at once.
Setting up the amps is a fairly simple task and takes only a few minutes to complete. As for drum tech Lorne Wheaton, assembling Neil Peart's custom DW drum kit is a much longer proposition.
Starting with the riser, setting the kit, wiring, cleaning, my drum world, which consists of the sampling rack, and my tool kit and all that. Probably, to do it right, 2.5 hours. I've had to do it in 1 hour and 15 minutes before, which I don't like doing because that's just too rushed. And there's things along the way that you can miss if you're too rushed. But normally I have the right amount of time to be ready for the sound check.
The gift that Lorne has for understanding the setting up of a drum set, where every element of angle to you, and the stuff I've learned from my teacher too, and the physical aspect of me to the instrument, he understands intimately, so I never have to come in and say, oh, that cymbal should be a little more this way or that a little higher. He understands innately that there's a ergonomic relationship that I'm looking for, that everything relates to me, and he just knows it, and rarely, if ever, do I ever have to come in and say that that's a little higher. I mean, he measures and levels. You probably witnessed him at work. The snare drum has to be a certain height. My teacher taught me, you know, basically where your belly button is the center of your body, and that's where the height of the snare drum should be, and the motion takes place above that. He got that instinctively.
I've built many drum sets in my life. So, you know, you can always tell where a snare drum goes and a bass drum goes and a hi-hat. But a lot of the times, everything is varied depends on the player. And with Neil, nothing ever changes. I've worked with many drummers that will sit down and move things. Even if it's perfectly set, they will still move them. I don't know what it is with some guys. They just like to be part of the setup, obviously.
When it comes to nailing the perfect live performance, everything boils down to pre-show preparation. Still, once in a while, things can and do go wrong.
When he's out here playing, sometimes, because the pedals are so close together and the lights are flashing and you know, everything's going on, he's singing, he's playing bass, and he's doing the samples on the pedals. It's very easy sometimes to hit two pedals. Now each pedal is a different sample event depending on what the song is. It could either be used as bass pedals, it could be used as a keyboard, guitar parts, vocal parts. Everything that's played, every sound that comes off of the stage is triggered by them. There's no backup tape. There's I'm not over there hitting buttons or playing anything. It's all them, they do it in real time. And like I said, mistakes sometimes happen in that respect. And they've been doing it for 30 years, so they're quite good, and the mistakes are very minimal. None of those mistakes are anything compared to the mistake when I either miss hitting the enter button on one of the programs during a program change, or I just lose focus, getting caught up in the band or whatever, and I forget to make a change, or I make a change too soon. Now, usually those things don't happen, but they have, and that is quite embarrassing to me. Probably not noticeable so much, because anything that I do in that respect I can correct pretty quickly. But I usually get the look over the glasses from Geddy from time to time with that. I attribute some of that to old age, whereas he sometimes misses a pedal. Well, we won't go there.
Setting up the back line on this tour can take upwards of 7 hours. Still, it's not all hard work. The backline boys do try to inject some humor into their long day.
When Geddy got his chicken rotisseries, we're sitting there with this big amp stack up there, and we're like, wow, he's outdone us. What can we do to change that? And we're like, it was like, well, he's got hot chickens, why don't we get some hot chicks? And we couldn't really just put a bunch of real women on the stage, so we got all these little Barbies and made him his little groupie row. The dinosaurs, his grandkids are really into dinosaurs, so the dinosaurs started popping up, one here, one there, and now, I mean, it started out with 4 Barbies and 2 dinosaurs, and we're up to 30-something Barbies and 40-something dinosaurs.
The dinosaurs, we just started collecting them, and now we've received a couple. We just received this pterodon a couple of gigs ago, and on this T-Rex we received a while ago, and we sourced out a lot of good ones here. The Spinosaurus is an awesome version of it, I have to say. And the girls, of course, it's nice to have a gallery of shorter girls than me. But, you know, it's all about keeping the spirits up and the morale high and laughs, not only for us here, but for the audience.
At first, when those things started happening on stage, we just thought they were kind of one-offs. And then we realized that's part of what we are, and that's part of our life out here on the road. So now we spend more time planning things like that and giving the guys an opportunity to be interactive in the show.
The fish tank idea. We were just looking at the glass windows, and we're like, wow, what if we put a fish tank in there? It'd be kind of cool looking. And we thought about it for a couple weeks. It was like, no way can we put water in there. It's danger on the stage, you know, with all the electronics and stuff. And so I went out and found all these little fish.
I think it's fun when the audience can walk away with a smile on their face. And I love to look out there, and I love to see when people start laughing and smiling, and not because we were playing lousy, but because we set up some comic situation. So they're spending 3 hours with us, you know. So I think there needs to be some comic relief in that 3 hours.
There's no better feeling than to know that people are leaving your gig smiling and laughing because they had such a good time. That's really, I think, the key with us.
We have tons of room. Oh no, Dino just died.
Yeah, he killed it.
All right, what do you want to do?
The Backline Boys continue to prepare for this evening's performance, and that includes more cleaning, tuning, and restringing.
The whole rig is set up and just been powered, and I've strung one guitar, and I got 5 more to do today.
Back in Montreal, the move-in is running behind. It's time now for the techs to prepare their gear for the afternoon's sound check, slated for 4:30 p.m. They know they'll have to focus to keep the band from waiting.
This is Geddy's main bass. This is his one he uses all the time. His main Fender Jazz is 1972 Fender Jazz, and for this tour we finally had to put a brand new neck on it. The old original neck it was gone. Couldn't do anything more with it. It was just unplayable. Put a new neck on. It's great. Feels great. Still sounds like the original stuff, and he's very happy with it. So that's his main bass there. And these other basses here, this one is used for the song Circumstances, different tuning. And that's just for the one song, Circumstances. This bass here is used for Between the Wheels, once again, a different tuning, just for that one song. And then he uses a song called Malignant Narcissism. We call it Malnar for short. And it's a Jaco Pastorius model fretless Fender Jazz. And Fender had sent this to us, to Geddy, when we were in the studio, our studios, recording the album. And Geddy was playing around with it, and everybody, the engineer, the producer, and that thought it sounded great, and came up with this instrumental that they were doing. And he used it on this, and he plays it live. So it's just a fretless Fender Jazz, normal tuning. And then what Geddy's known for many years, I guess, was always playing a Rickenbacker, so we decided to break it on this tour. This is the first time since I've been with Geddy that he's brought out a Rickenbacker. And he plays this just on Passage to Bangkok. We decided, let's do it on one of the old classics in the Encore. And the rest of these are just spares, another just standard spare, and these are spares for the basses that are different tunings. And hopefully these will never ever get used. They're just there just in case. So that's the reason for the 8 basses. And this, for whatever it's worth, this is Geddy's rig. This is where his sound comes from. Very simple. He has what we call 3 different direct sounds. And then our audio guys, they mix it front of house, and then we have an engineer who mixes the 3 different sends for however Geddy wants to hear it and the rest of the band kind of thing. So pretty simple. And that's about it. It's my little workstation, my little toolbox where I take care of everything, fix everything that needs to be fixed, and we restringing guitars. A couple of the basses I have to restring today. His main one I restring every show. It's not that it needs it, but it's just fresh strings all the time, so it's a consistent sound of brand new strings every day. The strings that Geddy uses, it's a standard set that anybody can buy. It's made by Rotosound. It's called a Swing 66 set. And the gauge is basically, it's like it's in inches, like a 0.105 of an inch. That's the thickest string in E string. It's 0.105, a 0.80, 0.65, 0.45. So we just say 45, 65, 80, 105. That's not a custom set. That's just a standard set that you can buy. Anybody can buy in a store. And that Geddy, he endorses these. and that's his favorite string. We've tried other strings before, and you know, Roto Sound sort of had their own kind of sound, and it just, Geddy loves the way they sound. They just work good for him.
While Russ continues to restring and tune Geddy's basses down in the trenches on stage left, next to Monitor World, Bucky follows suit with Lifeson's 12 guitars over on stage right, in what the crew fondly refers to as Dimmer Beach.
It's 2 o'clock, 2:15, and I have, the whole rig is set up and just been powered, and I've strung 1 guitar, and I got 5 more to do today. So I'm in a rush now. So, but it's about average. It depends on how the rest of the loading goes in, on how I get my stuff together. And today, because it was high rigging, it took them a little extra time to get the rigging up, which in tail takes everything else a little longer, and now I'm a little behind, but I'll be ready by 4 o'clock. Pretty normal day.
Stage left is Geddy Lee's traditional home position. There, instrument technician Tony Geranios is tuning up the keyboards.
Tuning up the mini mode. Unlike the synth sample module I have over at my rack, which is all digitally tuned, this mode has to be tuned daily, or checked at least daily, to make sure that it is within its proper range. And then sometimes, to get the fatness out of the sound that this instrument offers, it has a second oscillator, and by detuning it ever so slightly, which making it go out of tune from the original, it kind of widens the sound, and that's what gives this instrument its really fat, rich sound. And basically, I have to make sure that that's calibrated, you know, for the show every night.
Over in the guitar tech area, Bucky has settled in for 90 solid minutes of stringing, cleaning, and tuning.
This here is his main favorite guitar. He bought it in '77. It's been with him ever since. He had it refinished once. That's why it looks so new. But before he had it refinished, it was completely spidered, all cracked up. It looked really cool. From what I understand, I never actually saw it like that. But that's and this stuff here, Big Ben's Nut Sauce. I highly endorse it for your nuts. People use liquid graphite, but it's really messy. And this is a liquid graphite that comes clear, and it's very, very useful, so you keep your strings from getting stuck. You see the black in there. I ran out of this stuff and had to use some liquid graphite, and it gets all dirty and yucky in there. That's why I don't like to use that. Or the powdered graphite, I should say. In the old days, we used to use a number 2 pencil, because the pencil lead would work great. It keeps the strings from sticking, and when you're tuning it, because sometimes you'll get to the point where it's right almost in tune, and you'll hear this, and the string will go really sharp, and you have to sit there and fight it to get back and forth. This saves it from doing that. It's just nice and smooth action. Dean Markley, it's all he's used for 30 years. After I stretch the string, I use a cloth, a regular cloth, Not like this one here is a treated cloth, and it's got a treatment on there to help clean off the guitar. You don't want to use this on the string, but a regular cloth, what I like to do is grab the string after I've stretched it and do another stretching, rubbing it on here, because what it does is the friction from the cloth heats up the string, and see it goes really flat. It actually heats up the string and helps it to stretch further, so you don't have to worry about it falling out of tune as often. It's a little trick that actually Russ showed me, and it works really well. I never have any tuning issues ever since I've used this method.
Now that all the instruments are tuned, it's time for one last blast before the boys can make some noise.
That's my best Ozzy Osbourne impersonation.
Back in Montreal, the crew is still running behind. In an effort to get the team back on schedule, Russ gives the band's carpenter and stage manager, George Steinert, a hand with the final stage prep.
We might be running a little bit behind. Usually line check's around 4. I'm plugging in the teleprompter. The one, it's for running lyrics. Alex had asked for this one for this tour, because normally he never did, because I guess with all the new songs where he sings a lot of the backup vocals and stuff, it was just like, yes, if he could have a monitor as well. So I'm just plugging in the monitors now. Or trying to.
Meanwhile, Lorne Wheaton is focused on putting the finishing touches on Neil's kit. With the backline work complete, the techs have one last opportunity to troubleshoot their gear before the band arrives to warm up.
What happens in line check is we start out with the bass, and Russ will check the bass and make sure it all works.
Keep going? Now it's it.
Then we'll go through and we'll check the piezo, the acoustic part of the electric guitar. Then we'll check the electric guitar, we'll check the main amps, then we'll go through the switchblade 1 and 2. Then we'll check both the 12 strings, and then go on to the mandolin. And then we'll move on to Jack. We'll take care of doing all the keyboard stuff. And then Lauren will go through all the drums. And hopefully there's no issues and we get through it quick, and then we go on to kicking back for about a half hour before the band shows up.
best Ozzy Osbourne impersonation. Jakey Lee right there, shreds. I don't hack around too much because I'm a terrible guitar player. I could fix them great, but I can't play them. I got 15 guitars hanging on my wall at home. I've never strung them once, never cleaned them once. I hardly even look at them because when I get home, I don't even want to think about guitars. I've only in one band ever in my life, and I was the rhythm guitar player, and I was very low in the mix, but we were called Cruel but Fair, but really cruel. And it was all a Bonnie Raitt's crew. We used to play nights off during our tours.
Eventually, the band should be coming out soon, and the band will run through a sound check. They do about 4 songs. Run through a sound check, make sure their in-ears and everything sound good to them, and it's just for our front of house monitors, make sure everything's all together, everything's working properly, and usually sound check runs about 20 minutes, if that.
That one's still doing it.
What's that?
This one's still doing it.
Okay.
This one's good.
Just hit that surface one
time.
Yeah. One time.
Just before the sound check begins, Neil and Lorne discover that one of the electronic drums is triggering 2 different sounds.
Okay, try that, bub.
This one's almost too much.
Almost too much?
Well, the rim sometimes plays the other
Okay,
sound.
so just hit the surface one?
The rim?
Just
it's the rim that's...
just the surface.
Okay.
The head.
The surface is fine,
the head,
though.
Yeah. Okay. Try that.
That's a lot better.
Is it good? I think we've got it.
I put pressure on myself. Because I figure that's how you do a better job, is by the pressure that you put upon yourself. You know, obviously you don't want to give yourself an ulcer, but at the same time, I find myself, I work better under pressure. I think probably a lot of people work better under pressure. I don't let a lot of things go over my head, kind of thing, and I'm a pretty intense person when it comes to working.
This one was baffed. It's on its way out, so that's probably why you weren't hearing it last night. I moved this one over here, 2 gigs. That's a new one there.
So what was wrong with it?
It's on its way out. It's almost broken.
Yeah.
So that's why it wasn't projected.
How can you tell?
It's not as solid sounding as a.
Yeah, that's because I noticed when this was turned up, I was hearing the whoosh.
Yeah. So it's on its way out. So I transferred this one over to here. This is a couple of gigs old, and this is a new one, but it sounds good.
In all the years that I've been playing, it's only since I've been working with Lorne that I would trust him to be able to tune the drums every day. Sometimes we'll discuss, oh, I think the 13-inch tom should go up or down a little bit in pitch, and he'll just do it. And then we'll discuss the tonal relationship among the toms, for example. But the gift of that, of me being able to trust his ear to the snare drum or some choice like that as if it were my own, makes him very special indeed.
any sound check now complete, both the band and the crew will take a well-deserved meal break while they wait for the fans to arrive. Once the lights go down, the technicians will go back to work.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and roll.
Anything can always go wrong. But, you know, the funniest things can happen. You know, it's like, I mean, there's been times where, you know, Geddy will be running around on stage and he'll do a little jump on stage and his wireless in-ear pack will fall off and it'll unplug. You know, so it's a matter of running up and trying to grab it and putting it back on. Because if that falls off, he can't hear anything. Doing a live show, because Geddy plays the same bass a lot, there's not a lot of guitar changes for me. I run a teleprompter for Geddy with all the lyrics of all the songs. See, because it's not that Geddy's forgetful or anything like that, because he is so busy, as anybody who's a Rush fan will see it at a live show. He has these foot pedals that's triggering all kinds of sounds. He's playing keyboards as well as playing bass, and he's got to sing. So I think a lot of times the last thing he really wants to think about is the lyrics.
You get tired, but the thing is, you know that you have to do the job, and that job has to get done, and you do it so many times through rehearsals and all the shows that it becomes a little monotonous, and it becomes a little bit scheduled. You know exactly what's going to happen at this time of the day. I get a rush from seeing the crowd go nuts, you know, and I get a rush from watching my artist do what he does best and have fun doing it, you know. It's all about the fun with me. You gotta have fun or it's not worth doing. If you're not having fun out here, you might as well stay home. We get to travel around the world. We get paid to travel around the world and make people happy. What better job can you have than that?
I figure I have probably the best gig in live music, because I get to watch Neil play every night, and I know him as a good friend, so that's why I come back every time, and I will come back until they don't want to come back.
I know I've done a good job when Geddy never says anything to me. If you never hear a thing, then I got to believe the guy's happy.
I just want these guys to be able to put on the best performance they possibly can and not worry about anything but in making the fans enjoy their music.
Is that